Security dragged Black CEO off plane hours later. She pulled $5 billion in funding. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Her heels struck the polished airport floor like a metronome of control. Steady, deliberate, unstoppable. But that rhythm broke the moment she reached Gate B7, where a white and black sign read in bold letters, "First Class Priority Boarding." A voice cut through the air before she could even show her pass. "Ma'am, this lane's for first class only. You might want to check the economy line down there." It wasn't said softly. It was said like a verdict. Two uniformed security officers stepped forward, flanking her on both sides. Their stance wasn't protective, it was territorial. Between them, the woman in red didn't flinch. Her phone was still pressed to her ear, her breath measured, her eyes locked straight ahead. Behind the counter stood a gate supervisor, blonde, polished, arms crossed, watching like a judge presiding over a case she'd already decided. The murmurs from nearby passengers began to ripple. A few turned to stare, a few lifted their phones. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see your boarding pass now," one officer said. "I already scanned it," she replied evenly. "Then why's your name not showing on my list?" Her gaze didn't waver. "Maybe because you're looking in the wrong system. In Hafidsen, a visit aptus." That was when the supervisor stepped closer, voice sharp enough to slice the space between them. "Look, we've had people try to sneak into first class before. Let's not make this complicated." Every word dripped with the same message. "You don't belong here." The woman in red, calm, composed, took one slow step forward, the spark of fury buried under her professionalism. "Is there a problem with my ticket or with me?" No one answered. The silence was answer enough. The officers exchanged a glance. One of them lifted a hand toward his radio. "Security to B7, possible disturbance." She exhaled, slow, precise, then spoke into her phone, the one still live on her ear. "Yes, Rachel. It's happening again." Her assistant's voice came through faintly from the other side, tinny but steady. "Understood, ma'am. Do you want me to activate the internal alert?" "Not yet," she murmured. "Let them finish their assumption." Passengers began recording. The tension thickened, the air turning heavy beneath the sterile hum of terminal lights. The supervisor tried one last condescending smile. "You can save yourself the embarrassment if you just step aside. This area is for our premium travelers." Her reply was quiet, but it carried. "You're right. It's for premium travelers. And I built the company that funds half your airline's premium program." But they didn't hear it. Not yet. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Ava Carter, the woman they just tried to pull off a plane she helped finance. The officer on her right adjusted his stance, hand resting near his belt. The tone in his voice shifted from polite to procedural. "Ma'am, step back behind the line." "I'm not crossing it," Ava said calmly. "I'm standing where my ticket allows." Her red dress caught the sterile airport light like a flare, striking, confident, impossible to ignore. But in their eyes, it was defiance. Passengers shuffled uneasily. A teenage boy whispered to his mother. She didn't do anything. The mother hushed him, eyes glued to her phone camera. The lens trembled slightly. She was filming. Everyone was. The blonde supervisor sighed, tapping her iPad with exaggerated patience. "You see, your name doesn't appear on our first-class manifest. Maybe there's been a booking error, or maybe you're on the wrong flight." Ava tilted her head. "Try checking under Carter Holdings." The woman froze for half a second, then scoffed. "We don't take corporate accounts here, ma'am. This is a passenger gate, not a business lounge." Ava smiled faintly, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You should still try." But the supervisor didn't. She looked to the officers. "Go ahead and escort her to customer service. She's disrupting the boarding process." That word escort hit like a slap. Ava's assistant's voice whispered again through her earpiece. "They've flagged you on the internal feed, Miss Carter. Do you want me to confirm your identity?" "No," Ava said softly. "Let's see how far they take it." The officer on her left stepped forward. "Ma'am, we're not asking again. The crowd held its breath. Somewhere near the seating area, a man muttered, "Why they always do this to people like us?" His voice broke through the low hum of the terminal. Ava slowly extended her hand, showing her platinum boarding pass and black titanium card names matching flawless condition. The officer looked unsure but took them anyway, passing them to the supervisor. She held the card between two fingers like it might burn her. "Cute. We've seen counterfeits before." "Then scan it," Ava replied. The woman did. The scanner blinked green. Valid, perfectly valid. Yet she frowned. "That's odd." "Not odd," Ava said quietly. "Expected." The tension twisted tighter. Cameras kept rolling. The supervisor's voice sharpened again. "Look, we're following policy. Please move to the side until we verify your identity." Ava's patience, razor thin now, finally showed a crack not in her voice, but in her eyes. "And if I refuse? Then we'll have to remove you from the boarding area," the officer said. Her phone buzzed again. Rachel's voice came through. "Ma'am, our system just received a request from their gate manager for identity escalation. Want me to respond?" "Yes," Ava said, eyes never leaving the supervisor. "Authorize the full verification protocol. And patch in finance." "Finance?" the officer repeated, confused. "What does that mean?" "You'll find out," she said simply. At that moment, another gate agent, younger, nervous, stepped forward. She's right. The card's registered under Carter Holdings Group. That's the name on our investor list." The supervisor shot her a glare. "Step back, Jenna." But the damage was done. The whisper had spread. "Investor list?" Passengers began murmuring louder. Phones raised higher. The power in the room tilted, almost imperceptibly, but it was shifting. Ava took one small step forward, voice steady, each syllable deliberate. "You wanted proof I belong here? You're standing in it. This airline exists because of people like me, people you just called out of line." The officer hesitated, lowering his hand from his belt. The crowd's silence thickened, electric. "Now," Ava said, "are you ready to check again? Or should I call my board?" The supervisor blinked, realizing too late that this wasn't a passenger she could dismiss. And for the first time, she looked afraid. The air in Gate B7 hung heavy, almost metallic. Ava could hear the hum of the overhead lights, the faint whir of the boarding gate machinery, and beneath it the quiet panic of people realizing something was about to explode. The blonde supervisor drew herself up, smoothing the lapel of her navy jacket as if that would restore authority. "We have procedures for a reason," she said sharply. "We can't just let anyone walk into first class." Ava's answer came slow and even. "You already did. You just don't like what I look like when I walk in." That line landed like a thunderclap. Several passengers gasped. The officer on her right shifted awkwardly, eyes darting to his partner. Behind the glass wall, a flight attendant peeked out from the jet bridge, young, brown-skinned, eyes wide, her phone half hidden in her hand. She'd been recording for minutes. The supervisor ignored it, doubling down. "Listen, ma'am, this is not about race, it's about protocol. Protocol that somehow always starts with people who look like me," Ava said, her tone quiet but slicing. One of the officers stepped closer. "Let's not make this bigger than it has to be." Ava met his gaze. "It already is." Her phone buzzed again in her palm. Rachel's voice was clipped, professional but urgent. "Ma'am, the finance team confirms. Your withdrawal authorization is ready. One command and the $5 billion partnership freeze executes." Ava turned away slightly, lowering her voice. "Not yet. I want them to see the choice they're making." Passengers were whispering now. "She said $5 billion. Wait, who is she?" The young attendant inside the gate took a hesitant step forward. "Miss Harris," she said to the supervisor, "the system just pinged me. Carter Holdings has investor clearance level 1. That means you're overstepping, Jenna," the supervisor snapped. "Return to the cabin." But the damage deepened. Eyes turned toward Ava. Even the officers hesitated. Ava stayed still, the kind of stillness that felt deliberate, sovereign. Every flicker of movement around her seemed to orbit that calm. "You called security on a shareholder," she said finally. "Do you understand what that means?" The supervisor laughed, brittle and defensive. "If that were true, you wouldn't be standing here arguing." "You're right," Ava replied softly. "Because if I wanted to argue, this entire terminal would already be closed." Silence. Only the whir of luggage wheels passing somewhere behind them. The officer on the left murmured, half under his breath, Maybe we should double-check that manifest. The supervisor's face flushed. You will do nothing until I say so. She's being removed, and that's final. The words being removed echoed down the gate corridor like a sentence. Ava inhaled deeply, centering herself. She remembered a different airport, a different humiliation, 23 years old, carrying a scholarship letter, pulled aside for random screening. The same cold fluorescent lights, the same disbelief that respect had to be proven. She wasn't 23 anymore. She lifted the phone back to her ear. Rachel, she said quietly. Start the clock. Confirmed. Freeze countdown initiated. Ava turned back to the supervisor, her eyes steady. You've got about 5 minutes before this airline loses more money than it's made all quarter. Would you like to finish your procedure? The supervisor stared at her, speechless. The officers exchanged a look that said everything. This was no longer a routine situation. From the seats nearby, the teenage boy's mother whispered, She's not bluffing. The power dynamic flipped in silence. Ava didn't move. She didn't need to. The stillness had become command. The blonde woman swallowed hard, voice trembling for the first time. Ma'am, who exactly are you? Ava's answer came like the slow pull of gravity. The reason this gate exists. And somewhere in the distance, a PA chime sounded. Final boarding call for Flight 702 to Los Angeles. It wasn't just a flight leaving, it was the last call for respect. The terminal had fallen into that strange, fragile quiet that comes right before a storm. Ava stood centered beneath the glowing sign B7 First Class Priority Boarding, the red of her dress burning against the white light like defiance itself. Passengers had stopped pretending to scroll their phones. Some filmed openly now. The hum of whispers built like a low tide. She said 5 billion, right? Is she serious? Man, she's too calm to be lying. The blonde supervisor cleared her throat, trying to claw back control. All right, enough theatrics. Officers, please escort her from the gate area before she disrupts another flight. Ava's eyes flicked to the officer on her right, a tall man with a practiced neutrality that had started to crack. You really want to do that? She asked softly. On camera? He hesitated. Cameras. Always the cameras. The other officer stepped forward instead, voice low but clipped. Ma'am, you've been given multiple chances to comply. We're not here to debate. No, Ava interrupted gently. You're here to enforce someone else's bias and call it safety. That line landed hard. Even the airport's soundtrack seemed to pause between songs. The supervisor folded her arms. You can play the victim all you want, but rules are rules. And yet somehow, Ava said, her tone even, they only tighten when someone like me follows them perfectly. Behind the counter, Jenna, the younger attendant, looked visibly torn. She whispered to another staffer, her credentials scanned green. The staffer shook his head, mouthing, don't get involved. Ava's phone buzzed again. Rachel? She whispered. Ma'am, countdown at 3 minutes. Board is monitoring live. Do you want to issue verbal notice? Not yet, Ava said. Let them show the world what policy looks like in practice. The supervisor rolled her eyes. You know, you people always try to make everything about discrimination. Maybe you should dress more appropriately next time. Our premium guests expect a certain presentation. That did it. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. The sentence hung in the air like smoke. Ava's expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes did the quiet flicker of a flame turning into steel. She took one deliberate step forward, heels echoing through the concourse. You think power only wears a suit, she said. You think dignity depends on fabric. That's why you'll never see real power coming. It doesn't need your permission to walk through a door. Jenna's voice broke through the silence. Miss Harris, please stop, she said, eyes wet, trembling but brave. Her pass is valid. I saw it myself. She's authorized for first class. The supervisor spun on her. You're done here, Jenna. No, Jenna said, standing taller. You are. Phones lifted higher. Someone whispered, she's standing up for her. The blonde woman looked around, realizing control had slipped like sand through her fingers. She turned to the officers. Remove both of them. Now. The taller officer didn't move. He looked at Ava, then at Jenna, then back at the growing sea of phones. Ma'am, he said carefully, I'm not putting hands on anyone whose ticket scans green. That single sentence broke something open. A ripple of approval swept the gate area, small claps, murmurs, a few voices saying, thank you. The supervisor's face flushed crimson. Fine, she hissed. If you won't do your job, I'll call terminal security myself. She grabbed her radio, pressing it like a lifeline. Control, this is Gate B7. I need immediate assistance for... Ava spoke over her. No, you won't. Her tone was calm but commanding the voice of someone used to being obeyed. Because by the time they get here, your airline's funding pipeline will be frozen, your accounts flagged, and your name will be on the audit report that started it. The woman blinked, confused, almost laughing. Excuse me? Who do you think you are? Ava smiled small, knowing. Lethal. The mistake you just made in red? At that exact moment, her phone vibrated again. Rachel's voice came through clear, crisp, corporate. Board acknowledgement received. 30 seconds until freeze authorization. Ava didn't look away from the supervisor. Then I suggest you use those 30 seconds to remember every word you said. The officer on the right exhaled slowly, muttering under his breath, Oh my God, she's serious. Cameras zoomed in. The countdown was invisible, but everyone could feel it ticking, inevitable, like justice approaching from somewhere higher than any terminal ceiling. And Ava Carter, in her crimson dress, didn't raise her voice once. For a moment, time felt suspended. The fluorescent lights hummed, the digital board flickered, and every eye at Gate B7 was fixed on the woman in red, standing perfectly still, phone in hand, gaze locked forward like a storm deciding where to land. The supervisor laughed, nervous and brittle. You're bluffing. No one person has that kind of power. Ava didn't blink. You'd be surprised what happens when the people you ignore start owning what you depend on. It 80 down. Rachel's voice came through her earpiece, calm, clinical, merciless. Authorization confirmed. Financial network override engaged. Horizon Air Systems entering lockdown. A soft beep echoed from the gate computer. Then another. The screen behind the counter flashed red, then black. What is that? The supervisor stammered, tapping the screen. Nothing responded. System error, Jenna whispered, eyes wide. Everything's frozen. A passenger gasped as the overhead monitor glitched. The departure list vanished into static. The intercom cut off mid-sentence. Rachel, Ava said quietly. Report status. Live freeze confirmed, came the answer. All outgoing transfers from corporate accounts suspended. Partner payments halted. You've just grounded an airline, ma'am. The supervisor's jaw fell open. You can't just do that. Ava took a slow breath. I didn't do it. You did the moment you decided my skin tone disqualified me from a seat I paid for. Phones were everywhere now. The crowd had grown, faces pressed toward the chaos. Someone whispered, she really did it. Another, she's shutting the company down. Jenna stepped closer to the counter, trembling but resolute. Miss Carter, should I notify operations control? They're asking if this is real. Ava nodded once. Tell them to check who signed their last payroll. The supervisor's voice cracked. You're saying you signed wait. Carter Holdings? Her face drained of color. Oh my God. That's right, Ava said softly. 21% shareholder. And after today, not a cent of that stays here. The taller officer slowly lowered his hand from his belt, exhaling through his teeth. Ma'am, I think we made a mistake. Ava turned to him, voice level. You didn't. You followed orders. The problem is who you chose to believe. The gate area was silent except for the hum of recording phones. The tension had flipped completely, shame-spreading where arrogance once stood. The supervisor swallowed hard, searching for words. Miss Carter, I didn't know. That's the problem, Ava cut in. You never ask. You just assume. You see a black woman and think less. You see confidence and think threat. You see red and call it trouble. Her words weren't shouted. They carried the gravity of truth, steady, devastating. Rachel's voice broke the silence again. Ma'am, board conference, line open. They want your statement for documentation. Ava nodded once, lifting the phone closer. Put them on, speaker. The calm voice of a man filled the gate. Miss Carter, this is James Whitaker, chair of the board. We're aware of the incident. Confirming you initiated the freeze? We're clashing. Confirmed, Ava said. And I'll be recommending termination for all personnel involved. Effective immediately. The supervisor's lips trembled. Please, this can't be how it ends. Ava turned toward her, unflinching. It's not the end, it's accountability. A murmur rippled through the crowd, applause starting quietly from somewhere near the seats. Jenna wiped at her eyes. Even the officer looked down, humbled. Ava adjusted her blazer sleeve, reclaiming her composure piece by piece. Rachel, log my statement. Logged, came the reply. Then Ava looked around at the cameras, the passengers, the quiet witnesses to what dignity looked like when it finally refused to shrink. You wanted to make an example of me, she said, voice calm but unbreakable. Now you are the example. The overhead lights flickered once more, almost like a bow. And as Ava Carter walked past the officers and through the silent gate, the world behind her began to remember her name. The sound that followed wasn't applause. It was silence, that deep, shocked kind of silence when power changes hands. The entire gate seemed to hold its breath. Even the conveyor belts stopped clattering for a moment, as if the airport itself was listening. Ava stood at the center of it all. No security guards flanking her now. No one dared move. The supervisor, Melissa Harris, her name finally visible on her badge, looked small, cornered behind her own counter. Her voice cracked when she spoke. Miss Carter, please. I didn't mean. You didn't mean to be caught, Ava said softly. That's the difference. Jenna, the young attendant, stood a few steps behind her, hands clasped tight to stop their trembling. She just watched her superior crumble in real time. Around them, passengers whispered, cameras recording, every moment immortalized. The taller officer cleared his throat. Ma'am, what do you want us to do? Exactly what your training told you to, Ava said, turning toward him. De-escalate, he nodded, stepping back. The shorter officer followed suit, his voice barely above a whisper. We didn't know who you were. Ava met his eyes. Then maybe you should start treating everyone like they might be someone. Melissa stammered, desperate to salvage what little dignity she had left. Miss Carter, this whole thing is a misunderstanding, a system glitch. We thought your ticket was fake, Ava interrupted. Forged? Purchased with the wrong color of credit card? Her tone stayed calm, but the words cut like broken glass. You called security on your employer, Miss Harris. You tore up my boarding pass. You humiliated me in front of strangers, and you lied to justify it. And now your entire airline has to answer for that decision. The crowd murmured again, the weight of the statement hitting like thunder. Rachel's voice came through the phone, still in Ava's hand. Miss Carter, corporate PR is requesting to know if this incident should be made public or handled internally. Ava's gaze swept the gate, every camera pointed her way, every eye waiting for justice to land. It's already public, she said. The world's watching. Melissa's shoulders slumped. I've worked here 10 years. Then you should have learned something by now, Ava replied. Jenna took a cautious step forward. Miss Carter, if I may, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for staying quiet at first. Ava looked at her, and for the first time, her expression softened. You spoke when it mattered. That's what counts. Rachel's voice returned, businesslike as ever. Board meeting confirmed for review. HR and compliance waiting for your directive. Terminate gate supervisor Harris, Ava said evenly. Effective immediately. Melissa froze, mouth opening but no sound coming out. Rachel, ensure severance is withheld pending investigation, Ava continued. And promote Jenna Lee to interim supervisor, gate B7. The younger woman's eyes widened. Wait, what? Miss Carter, You earned it, Ava said. You did your job when others hid behind policy. There was a faint sound, a ping from the airport speakers as the system rebooted, this time under Ava's command. Passengers began to clap, hesitant at first, then stronger, until the entire gate joined in. Some even stood. The applause wasn't just for her, it was for what she represented. Melissa covered her face with both hands, tears streaking mascara down her cheeks. She wasn't the villain in her own mind, just another person who'd mistaken status for safety. But now, stripped of both, she saw what accountability looked like up close. Ava turned away, ready to board, her phone still warm in her hand. Rachel, she said quietly, restore operations for remaining flights. Exclude Horizon Air from all Carter Holdings funding streams until further notice. Understood, Rachel replied. Ava handed her boarding pass reissued in seconds to the stunned gate agent, now manning the counter. He scanned it. The light blinked green. Welcome aboard, Miss Carter, he said softly. Thank you, she replied. Next time, mean it. She walked down the jet bridge without looking back. Cameras followed her every step, but she didn't pose for any of them. She didn't need to. Power didn't require proof anymore. Only memory. Behind her, Gate B7 remained silent, except for one truth echoing in every mind. They had just witnessed the cost of underestimating the wrong woman. The jet bridge was silent except for the hum of engines below, that low living growl that fills the chest like a heartbeat. Ava walked it alone. The light shifted from sterile white to warm amber as she neared the cabin entrance, her reflection rippling across the glass, one woman against an entire system. When she stepped inside the aircraft, every head in first class turned. Passengers who had seen the chaos at Gate B7 lowered their phones, unsure whether to applaud or avoid her eyes. She didn't need their validation. She carried her own weather. The flight attendant nearest to her, an older black woman with silver braids, gave a small nod of acknowledgement. No words, just recognition. A moment of quiet solidarity that said, "I saw it too." "Welcome aboard, Miss Carter," the attendant said softly, her voice careful but warm. "Thank you," Ava replied. "It's good to finally be addressed properly." She slid into seat 2A, the very seat they'd tried to deny her. The leather still held the imprint of arrogance, but that, too, would fade. She placed her phone face down on the armrest, closed her eyes for one breath, and let silence have its moment. Outside, the gate agents scrambled like ghosts of their former authority. Melissa Harris was gone, escorted out quietly by terminal management. Cameras followed, whispers chasing her name, but the story had already shifted. Back in the cabin, Jenna appeared in the doorway, eyes red from tears she hadn't had time to hide. She approached cautiously, holding a tablet. "Miss Carter, I've processed the reinstatement order and updated your reservation manually. I wanted to thank you." Ava looked up, her tone steady. "Don't thank me. Just don't let them make you forget who you are." "I won't," Jenna said. "Not after today." Ava's phone buzzed again. Rachel's voice came through clear and composed. "Ma'am, trending tag is up. Number Carter Holdings and number Gate B7 have hit 2.1 million views in 15 minutes. CNN Business and Reuters have both requested comment." "Ignore them," Ava said. "Justice doesn't need an audience." Rachel paused. "Understood. Do you want me to issue the internal statement to employees?" "Yes," Ava said quietly. "Send it company-wide." Rachel began to read the draft aloud. "Effective immediately, Carter Holdings will review all partner contracts to ensure racial equity and operational accountability. No partner or affiliate found complicit in discriminatory practices will remain under our umbrella." Ava listened, gaze distant, watching the glow of the setting sun on the runway. "Approved," she said. "Add one line. We don't correct bias with outrage. We correct it with ownership." "Done," Rachel replied. The intercom chimed. "Cabin crew, prepare for takeoff." Engines roared, shaking the walls with purpose. Ava leaned back, exhaling not victory, but resolve. She wasn't satisfied. She was steady. A passenger across the aisle leaned over slightly. "Excuse me," he said nervously. You're the woman from Gate B7, right?" Ava turned her head. "Depends on who's asking. Someone who needed to see that," he said. "What you did. It reminded me that silence helps no one." She gave a small smile. "Then don't be silent next time." He nodded, embarrassed but inspired. The engines thundered. The world outside blurred into motion. Ava's eyes drifted shut, and for a brief moment, she saw herself 23 again. The girl pulled from a boarding line, holding tears she'd never let fall. She whispered to that memory like a prayer. "We made it back on the plane." As the jet lifted from the ground, sunlight sliced through the cabin, washing over her face like redemption, not loud, not cinematic, just earned. Rachel's voice echoed one last time in her ear. "Ma'am, legal team says the airline's board wants a private meeting tomorrow morning. Tell them I'll be there," Ava said. "At their headquarters." "Copy that." Ava turned toward the window, watching the clouds open like curtains before her. "Let's see if they've learned how to listen," she murmured. And as the plane climbed higher, leaving Gate B7 behind, Ava Carter didn't smile. She simply exhaled the kind of quiet that comes after a storm, when you realize the world finally knows your name and you don't need to say it twice. Morning light spilled across the glass walls of Horizon Air headquarters, slicing through the fog like a clean blade. The skyline beyond shimmered polished towers, empty promises, everything Ava Carter had helped build but never been invited to claim. Now she was here, and they were waiting. A boardroom stretched out before her 12 chairs, all occupied. The same people who once debated how to diversify their leadership now sat in stiff silence, eyes darting between their screens and her face. There was no mistaking it anymore. She wasn't the outsider in the room. She was the reason the room existed. James Whitaker, the chairman, cleared his throat first. Miss Carter, thank you for coming. We appreciate your time, and we'd like to apologize on behalf of Horizon Air for the events that transpired yesterday. Ava said nothing. She placed her phone on the table, its screen already glowing with the live feed of the Gate B7 incident. The video had crossed 10 million views overnight. You should be apologizing to your customers, she said quietly. Not to me. I know who I am. They don't. The executives exchanged uneasy glances. One woman, head of public relations, spoke next, her voice trembling under corporate polish. Miss Carter, please understand that our employees' behavior does not reflect Horizon's values. Ava looked at her steady, unblinking. Your values created them. Silence. The kind that hits like thunder. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. I've been part of this company since its inception. I built the funding model you still use. But every time I walked into a board meeting, I had to prove I belonged. Yesterday, your staff proved exactly why that's still true. James tried to recover. We've suspended the supervisor responsible. I already terminated her, Ava cut in. And you're welcome. The PR director swallowed hard. What can we do to make this right? Ava stood, walking slowly to the window. The city looks small from here, streets like veins, cars like nerves, pulsing with the illusion of order. You can start, she said, by building a company where decency isn't a PR department. She turned back to them, voice calm but lethal. I want a permanent equity audit across every division, hiring, promotions, customer interactions, even marketing language. I want real transparency, not another glossy slogan. And I want it publicly signed by this board before end of day. It's steaders of abating placen. James opened his mouth, but she raised a hand. I'm not done. She crossed back to her seat, each step a reminder that control had moved. Secondly, Carter Holdings will redirect all frozen funds into a new foundation, one that trains young Black and brown professionals in aviation management. If this company can't treat them with dignity now, it'll at least learn to respect them later. A few executives nodded, the kind that nod when they've just been outmatched. The CFO spoke hesitantly. Miss Carter, that's a large-scale commitment. Would you be willing to co-chair the initiative? Ava tilted her head. I don't co-chair. I lead. The line hung in the air clean, unflinching, final. James finally exhaled. Consider it approved. Ava nodded once. Good. Then we're done here. But as she reached for her phone, James spoke again, quieter now, almost human. You know, Ava, 10 years ago, I remember telling our investors you were too assertive. I thought confidence like yours would alienate partners. I was wrong. Ava looked at him, no bitterness, just clarity. Confidence doesn't alienate people, James. Prejudice does. He nodded, humbled. You've changed this company. Ava gathered her things, her tone softer now but still edged with steel. I didn't change it. I reminded it who built it. She walked out of the boardroom, the sound of her heels echoing down the glass corridor. Not angry, not triumphant, just deliberate. Each step sounded like punctuation at the end of a long overdue sentence. Outside, the morning air was bright, alive, unfiltered. Her driver opened the door, but Ava paused, looking back at the building, then up at the sky where a plane climbed higher through the clouds. Funny, she murmured. Yesterday they tried to pull me off a plane. Today they're asking me to steer one. And with that, she got into the car. The city drifted away behind her as the car merged onto the highway. Morning sunlight spilled through tinted glass, turning the world gold. Ava sat in silence, phone resting on her lap, notifications lighting up news anchors, op-eds, strangers calling her, the woman who grounded an airline. She didn't smile. Power wasn't the point. Proof was. Rachel's voice came softly through the speaker. Ma'am, the board just signed the new charter. Equity audit confirmed. Ava looked out the window at a plane rising through the sky. Smooth, effortless, unstoppable. Good, she said. Let them remember who keeps them in the air. The car turned toward the horizon, city lights fading behind her. Justice had been served, not with noise, but with order. Because sometimes the loudest revolution isn't shouted in protest. It's whispered in results. And as Ava Carter closed her eyes, The clouds above seemed to open like applause. Justice didn't scream that day. It simply arrived.